imagine spending like 4 years of your life meticulously building a legacy. You're funding groundbreaking medical research, launching these massive national programs.
Right, creating entire department.
Exactly, departments that are literally designed to outlast you. You drop the blueprints, lay the foundation, and you put your name on the door.
Yeah.
And then the lease is just up, the next tenant moves in, and you have to sit on the sidelines and watch them literally tear down your favorite office just to build, I don't know, a ballroom.
It's brutal.
Today, we were talking about what happens when the life's work you thought was so permanent turns out to be, well, written in pencil.
Yeah, it's this terrifying realization that public life is essentially a real-time remodeling project.
Yeah.
And you do not hold the hammer.
No, you really don't.
We spend so much time talking about how public figures curate their image, right? But what we rarely examine is the brutal aftermath when that image or that legacy is just forcibly dismantled, whether that's by biology, the media, or, the voters.
Welcome back to our latest deep dive into the source material. If you are joining us for the first time, or, if you're a longtime listener, we are so incredibly glad you are here with us today.
So glad.
We are staring down this massive stack of sources that, honestly, on the surface, look like they belong in completely different universes.
Clearly.
We've got political memoirs from the highest offices in the land. We have a deeply unsettling true crime disappearance in Arizona. We are looking at high society British royal rifts, the incredibly messy reality of Hollywood co-parenting, and
Oh, the logistics of the Taylor Swift wedding.
yes, the intense logistical gymnastics of the most anticipated celebrity wedding of the decade.
And our mission today is really to find the connective tissue pulling all these narratives together. Because, there's a very clear through line here.
Oh, absolutely.
We're unpacking all of this for you so that you can walk away not just knowing the timeline of what happened, but actually understanding the underlying mechanics of why it all matters.
Right. And the overarching theme we are exploring across all these seemingly disparate sources is, well, it's the friction between scripting reality and public vulnerability. Whether you are a former first lady trying to cement a historical record, a British royal navigating a centuries-old institution, or literally the biggest pop star on the planet trying to plan a private wedding in Manhattan, the tension is identical.
It really is.
It's this universal struggle between the pristine story you desperately want to project to the world and the messy, unpredictable reality of public access.
So let's begin at the absolute highest stakes of public life, where losing your grip on the narrative has, profound historical consequences. I want to look at the recent media tour for Dr. Jill Biden's new memoir.
Right, View from the East Wing.
Yeah. Specifically, her highly revealing interview on MSNBC's Morning Joe with Willie Geist.
Okay, so now before we get into the specifics of what she said, I think it is really crucial to set the table for you, the listener. Regardless of where you sit on the political spectrum, or who you voted for, or what policies you support, we are looking at this interview purely through the lens of legacy management. We are impartially examining the architecture of how a political figure attempts to document their history.
Especially when the opposing party has taken the wheel.
Exactly. So just to be abundantly clear, we aren't endorsing the viewpoints or taking a left-wing or right-wing side here. We are just fascinated by the sheer mechanics of how a first family processes the dismantling of their work.
And that is exactly the right framework. Because the emotion in this interview is not just standard political rhetoric. It's highly personal grief over the loss of what she called institutional memory.
Institutional memory.
Yeah. Dr. Biden described her absolute heartbreak over watching the Trump administration reverse several of Joe Biden's programs.
Right.
She specifically highlighted the progressive food programs and the research money dedicated to women's health.
Yeah, she referred to her husband's philosophy as a pro-people approach, and essentially said that it's just devastating to watch everything they built be systematically erased. And I kind of want to pause on that phrase you just highlighted.
Institutional memory.
Yeah, what does that actually mean in a practical sense? Because to the average person, it just sounds like political jargon.
It's a phenomenal concept to unpack, actually. Institutional memory isn't just about, remembering what happened. It is the collective knowledge, the established protocols, and the literal funding mechanisms that make a government function in a specific way.
Okay, so like the actual machinery of it.
Exactly. When an administration spends 4 years creating a department to research women's health, they aren't just writing a check. They are hiring scientists, establishing grant processes, and building a bureaucratic infrastructure.
Wow. Right.
So when the next administration comes in and defunds it, you don't just lose the money. You lose the scientists. You lose the momentum. You lose the memory of how that machine worked.
It's like a complete wipe of the hard drive.
Yes.
And you can understand the emotional toll of that erasure totally regardless of how you personally feel about the software they were running. It's like watching an architect see their building completely remodeled by the next owner.
That's a great way to put it.
And she even brought this down to a literal physical level, which I found so fascinating. She talked about the East Wing of the White House.
Right. The actual building.
Yeah. She said she loved her offices there, loved seeing the excitement of families coming in for public tours and photos, and the current administration completely overhauled her favorite space to construct a massive ballroom.
It is a physical manifestation of her husband's legacy being dismantled.
Mm-hmm.
And what makes this memoir so compelling is that the interview did not shy away from the moments where the Biden administration lost control of their own narrative, like during their term.
Yeah.
She spoke quite candidly about the infamous 2024 debate against Donald Trump.
Right. She described Joe's performance on that stage as inexplicable, which is a huge word. And we all know the historical ripple effect of that single night. That debate was the turning point that derailed his re-election chances. It led directly to Kamala Harris taking over the ticket.
Which, as our sources note, ultimately ended in disappointment for their camp.
Right. And to admit that the catalyst for the end of a political dynasty was inexplicable, I mean, that is a stunning admission of vulnerability.
It completely strips away the usual political spin. But perhaps the most profound disruption of their narrative comes down to biology.
Yeah.
The interview touched on Joe Biden's 2025 cancer diagnosis. If you recall the political narratives surrounding his health during the campaign, it was a massive point of contention.
Oh, absolutely. Donald Trump frequently contrasted his own self-described excellent health with the Sleepy Joe moniker.
Right. And biology is the ultimate wild card, isn't it? You can have the most expensive PR team in Washington, you can have speechwriters and strategists, but you cannot spin a cellular mutation.
You really can't. Dr. Biden was very direct about it. She said cancer is hard, but she noted that he is okay and still giving speeches. But it just proves that the illusion of invulnerability is just that, an illusion.
Which brings us to a really critical pivot point in our discussion today.
Oh.
Dr. Biden's memoir is an attempt to reclaim a narrative that was lost to politics and biology. But the tragic reality of public life is that sometimes high visibility doesn't just cost you your legacy.
No.
It costs you your physical safety. And that leads us to the deeply unsettling situation currently developing in Tucson, Arizona.
This is truly terrifying, and it perfectly illustrates the dark side of public access. We're looking at the disappearance of Savannah Guthrie's mother, Nancy Guthrie.
Yeah.
She is 84 years old, and she has been missing from her home near East Skyline Drive since the evening of January 31st, 2026. The Pima County Sheriff's Department has issued an urgent appeal, and the details are incredibly grim.
They are. What the forensic experts are theorizing here is a chilling example of how a public profile can be weaponized against an innocent person.
Right.
Barbara Butcher, who is a renowned forensic investigator, spoke to Fox News Digital and laid out a theory that strongly suspects someone local, perhaps a handyman or a service worker, targeted Mrs. Guthrie.
Oh my gosh.
And not because of anything she did or because she was inherently wealthy herself, but purely because they discovered she was the mother of Savannah Guthrie, one of the most famous morning anchors in America.
So they assume she must be sitting on a fortune just by proxy.
Precisely.
It is a crime built entirely on a parasocial assumption. Like, if the daughter is on television every morning interviewing presidents, the mother must have millions in a safe in the desert.
Exactly. And what makes this case so horrifying for the family, and honestly so concerning for investigators, is the complete lack of communication.
Right. There haven't been any calls.
No ransom calls, no demands. Butcher theorizes that an 84-year-old woman being violently abducted from her home likely suffered from severe shock, fright, or even a catastrophic cardiac event almost immediately during the kidnapping.
That is just awful.
The working fear among experts is that the kidnapper realized she had passed away, panicked, and buried her in the desert to cover their tracks.
It is an absolute nightmare. Savannah Guthrie has reportedly spent $500,000 of her own money funding private searches. And if you're listening to this right now, I really want you to think about the terrifying implications of that.
Yeah.
When you are a public figure, your family becomes public by extension. Your fame creates a warped narrative in the minds of strangers. The very thing that gives Savannah Guthrie her career, her high-profile visibility, is the exact mechanism that put a target on her mother's back.
It's the ultimate loss of boundaries. And the concept of public access is, well, it's a complex double-edged sword. For some, like the Guthrie family, being highly visible and accessible leads to severe, life-altering security risks.
Right.
But for others, that exact same accessibility, that relentless visibility, translates directly into massive political capital.
Which brings us to arguably the most surreal, whiplash-inducing story in our stack today. Because while the traditional political guard is writing memoirs about institutional memory and families are suffering the consequences of fame, the new political guard is emerging from MTV reality shows.
I still can't believe it.
Spencer Pratt, the infamous reality TV villain from The Hills, is currently running for mayor of Los Angeles.
And we really cannot stress this enough. It is not a joke campaign.
No.
It is not a publicity stunt to launch a podcast. It is a highly effective, statistically viable political run.
I am still trying to wrap my head around the numbers. According to the primary polling data, Spencer Pratt is sitting firmly in second place with 30.4% of the vote.
That is wild.
He is breathing down the neck of the incumbent mayor, Karen Bass, who has 34.8%. City Councilwoman Nithya Raman is trailing in third with 22.3%. Because no one secured over the 50% threshold required to win outright, Pratt and Bass are almost certainly heading for a head-to-head runoff election this November.
Let's just break down the mechanics of how this happens, because
Right.
it speaks volumes about where our culture places value right now. Karen Bass has decades of traditional political experience.
Yeah, real experience.
She operates in the same ecosystem of institutional memory that Jill Biden reveres. She is running a standard, policy-driven, boots-on-the-ground campaign.
Right.
Spencer Pratt, on the other hand, has spent the last 2 decades curating a persona built entirely on manufactured drama, selling healing crystals, and reality television conflict.
And he is weaponizing that exact playbook for municipal government.
Oh, totally.
He recently accused Mayor Bass of violating election laws by campaigning too close to polling places. He's turning a procedural issue into reality show drama. Meanwhile, Bass is having to issue formal statements about AI-generated pro-Pratt videos circulating online that she claims are encouraging violence.
He is completely dragging a traditional politician into the mud of the attention economy.
Yeah.
But look at why it is working. Pratt has leveraged his relentless accessibility. For years, he has documented every mundane, chaotic, and controversial moment of his life on Snapchat, Instagram, and TikTok.
Oh, every second of it.
He has built a massive, highly mobilized base that completely bypasses traditional political vetting. He doesn't need to knock on doors or win over the local newspaper editorial board. He just needs the attention span of the voters right now.
But hold on, doesn't that completely terrify you? Like, if we know that Spencer Pratt is running a campaign based on vibes, crystals, and AI videos, what does that say about the electorate? Are we just so desperate for entertainment that we are willing to hand over the keys to the second largest city in America to a guy whose primary qualification is yelling at Lauren Conrad in 2007?
It isn't just about entertainment, though. It is about the perception of authenticity.
Interesting.
Traditional politicians often feel overly scripted, focus-grouped, and distant. Spencer Pratt feels immediate. Even if he is chaotic, the voter feels like they have direct access to him because he is streaming his thoughts from his car every morning. The political landscape has shifted from demanding competence to demanding engagement.
Wow. So the old rules of public life are officially burning down. The traditional blueprint doesn't work anymore.
It really doesn't.
And nowhere is that friction more evident than when we cross the pond to look at an institution that basically invented the concept of the curated public image, the British royal family. Because right now, their historical sense of duty and their modern personal branding are at total war with each other.
The royal family has survived for centuries by relying on the illusion of effortless control. They are the ultimate architects of institutional memory. But as we discussed with the Bidens, biology eventually forces everyone's hand.
Yeah, that wild card again.
Exactly. We recently saw King Charles and Kate Middleton reunite for their first major joint event since both were diagnosed with cancer in 2024.
Right. And to give some timeline context for you all, Kate reportedly finished her preventative chemotherapy treatment in December of 2024, while Charles is still actively undergoing his treatment.
Right.
But despite that, they showed up together at St. James's Palace to commemorate the 125th anniversary of Cancer Research UK. And the king has actually been the patron of this specific charity since 2024.
This appearance was an absolute masterclass in monarchical public relations, but it was also deeply authentically human.
Yeah, it was really moving.
They met with researchers and clinicians, highlighting that the organization's work has helped double cancer survival rates in the UK over the decades. But visually, the impact of seeing two senior royals, both actively battling this disease, standing in solidarity in a gilded palace, it communicates profound stability.
It says to the public, the institution endures even when the individuals within it are vulnerable.
Exactly. Physical presence in the royal ecosystem is the ultimate currency. You cannot tweet your way to royal authority. You have to show up in the flesh and do the work.
Showing up is literally the job description. But not everyone is showing up, and more importantly, not everyone is even invited.
Yeah, the wedding.
Yes. Because while the king and Kate are presenting this united front for charity, there is a massive proxy war happening on the family side. Peter Phillips, who is Princess Anne's son and the king's nephew, is getting married to Harriet Sperling on June 6th.
Yeah, it is supposed to be an intimate Cotswold ceremony at All Saints Church.
And as with any high society event, the guest list functions as a highly specific political map of current alliances.
Oh, it is a masterclass in reading between the lines. The Prince and Princess of Wales are expected to attend. Zara and Mike Tyndall will be there.
Right.
But King Charles and Queen Camilla are actually skipping the reception entirely. They were slated to attend Derby Day at the Epsom Downs Racecourse because they have just been named the new joint patrons of the Jockey Club.
Which is a huge deal. It's a role Queen Elizabeth held for 68 years, and she only missed the Derby twice since 1952. So duty calls, and the king must attend to the horses.
But the much more telling omission from this wedding is who wasn't invited at all.
Yeah.
Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are notably and entirely left off the guest list,
Right.
as are Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson.
Ouch. I mean, let's just pause on that. Being grouped in the do not invite pile with Prince Andrew, given his catastrophic public disgraces, is a massive statement by the extended royal family.
It's a huge statement.
And this snub comes at a really fascinating time for Meghan Markle specifically, because she is currently trying to execute a massive, high-stakes public relations pivot in America. She is reportedly trying to actively distance herself from what royal author Duncan Larcombe refers to as Prince Harry's chaos.
Larcombe argues that Harry is still deeply stuck in this cycle of royal drama, that every speech he gives, every interview he does, inevitably turns into a soap opera regarding his estranged relationship with King Charles and Prince William.
Right.
He is fighting a war of institutional memory. Meghan, conversely, is trying to build a completely separate, aspirational public image centered around her new commercial lifestyle brand, as ever.
She launched this brand alongside a massive Netflix series, With Love, Meghan, where she is selling artisanal jam, honey, wine, and luxury home goods. It is a very classic American celebrity play. Like, I am stepping back from the toxic family drama to focus on my wellness and my $200 artisanal jams.
But the data suggests that she is drastically losing control of this new narrative, too. According to polling from YouGov America, Meghan faced a severe 13-point drop in her net favorability rating between the third quarter of 2025 and the first quarter of 2026.
Wow.
She went from a respectable plus 15 net rating down to just plus 2.
And it isn't just polling. It is hitting the actual business metrics directly. Digital traffic to the As Ever website is plummeting. In December, around the launch, they had about 108,000 U.S. visitors. By April, that number was nearly cut in half, down to just 61,500.
This requires us to look at the underlying psychology of why a PR strategy fails. Transitioning from royal duty, which is built on service, physical presence, and charity, to a commercial lifestyle brand requires a fiercely loyal consumer base that trusts your authenticity.
Right, you need them to buy in.
Exactly. But As Ever has fundamentally failed on a mechanical level. For instance, they have yet to launch global shipping options. So she is actively alienating her entire UK base through the royal rift. And commercially, she is restricted to a US market where her favorability is rapidly declining. Furthermore, she's facing intense backlash for her pricing strategy, selling a candle set for $256.
Right, which completely shatters the parasocial contract you need to build a lifestyle brand.
Yeah.
You can't sell a community-focused wellness brand while pricing out 99% of your community.
No, you can't.
And of course, the royal critics are weaponizing this business stumble. Royal expert Hugo Vickers just released a book comparing Meghan and Harry to Wallace Simpson and King Edward VIII. the last American divorcee who caused a British king to abdicate the throne in 1936. Vickers controversially stated that Edward would do anything for Wallace, but he isn't sure Meghan would do the same for Harry. Okay, I have to jump in here and push back on this narrative because this feels incredibly calculated. Is it really fair to compare Meghan to Wallace Simpson? Or is that just the easiest, laziest historical parallel for royal critics to grab onto because they were both Americans who married into the institution?
It is an incredibly loaded comparison, and you are totally right to question the fairness of it. The historical context of the 1936 abdication crisis,
Yeah.
where the king literally gave up the crown to marry a twice-divorced woman, sparking a constitutional crisis right before World War II, is entirely different from a modern younger son choosing to step back from working royal roles.
Exactly. Harry was never going to be king anyway.
Correct. However, from a strictly PR perspective, Vickers is tapping into a psychological narrative that Meghan is fighting incredibly hard to control, the perception of loyalty. Wallace Simpson was historically painted, fairly or unfairly, as the cold, calculating American who tore a vulnerable royal away from his sacred duty. By invoking that specific name, Vickers is reinforcing the idea that Meghan's lifestyle brand is a self-serving enterprise, and that she is perfectly willing to let Harry drown in the royal drama while she sells wine in Montecito.
And it just goes back to what you said earlier about physical presence holding more weight than digital brand building. Charles and Kate showing up at a cancer charity in the flesh, looking vulnerable but dutiful, that buys an incredible amount of generational goodwill.
It really does.
Meghan trying to curate a pristine, digital, high-end lifestyle brand from California while actively ignoring the messy family dynamics just isn't translating the same way.
It is the stark difference between lived reality and curated aesthetics.
Yeah.
And as we see when we look closer at Hollywood right now, trying to curate a pristine aesthetic is virtually impossible when you have to deal with the ultimate chaotic variable, your exes.
Oh, the X factor. If you've ever had a messy breakup, you know this feeling. Dealing with a famous ex is like claiming squatters' rights in a PR ecosystem. You can try to move on, redecorate your life, and present a fresh face to the world, but there is still someone occupying a room in your house who knows exactly how to push your buttons. And right now, we are watching 3 different Hollywood titans try to manage the fallout of their exes in completely different ways.
Let's start with Jennifer Lopez, because her approach to narrative control right now is a fascinating case study in aggressive defense.
Oh, she went on the offensive.
J.Lo has been dealing with intense, relentless rumors that she had a secret fling with Brett Goldstein.
Yeah?
Yes, the beloved Roy Kent from Ted Lasso, who happens to be her co-star in the upcoming Netflix rom-com Office Romance.
Which is such a funny pairing, honestly.
It is. The blogs were going absolutely crazy. Unnamed sources were whispering that their on-set chemistry was undeniable. They were incredibly cozy at the wrap parties, and they even went on a highly visible date to see the Broadway play Oh, Mary in New York. The narrative being built by the tabloids was this classic, time-tested Hollywood rebound story following her highly publicized 2024 split from Ben Affleck. The sources claim the romance fizzled out due to schedules, but that they remained close friends. It's a very standard, safe piece of gossip that usually helps promote a movie.
But J.Lo did not let this narrative breathe for a single second. She and Brett Goldstein went on the Today Show to promote the film, sitting down with Savannah Guthrie, actually, bringing us full circle to our earlier segment. And J.Lo directly, almost surgically, shot the rumors down.
She really did.
She looked right at the camera and essentially said, "I get linked to everyone I stand next to. It doesn't make it true." She strongly emphasized that she is enjoying single life, she is focusing on herself, and she has zero interest in entertaining any romantic plotlines.
What is so fascinating about this is the direct confrontational strategy. In the old days of Hollywood PR, a celebrity might let a harmless romance rumor slide. Why? Because it drives box office numbers. It gets people talking about the chemistry in the upcoming movie.
Exactly, it's free press.
Right, but Lopez is clearly in a highly protective, defensive era. She is actively guarding her single, independent, and thriving narrative against any external plot lines. She refused to let the media construct a rebound story. She just burned the script on live television.
Meanwhile, her ex-husband, Ben Affleck, is taking a vastly different approach with his other famous ex-wife, Jennifer Garner.
Oh boy.
They split back in 2015, but they have always maintained this incredibly amicable, supportive co-parenting relationship, which on paper sounds incredibly healthy.
On paper, yes. But in reality, that relationship is now reportedly causing significant friction with Garner's longtime boyfriend, John Miller, the CEO of Caliburger.
Right, because according to the sources, Ben is essentially treating Jen Garner's house like his own personal living room. Sources say he drops by completely unannounced, spends days visiting, and they frequently grab lunch together in LA.
Just casually.
To the point where John Miller is telling his friends he desperately needs some healthy boundaries. The direct quote from the insider was that Affleck and Garner's relationship is undeniably codependent.
If we break down the ecosystem of this dynamic, Ben Affleck is utilizing his devoted family man image in a way that is highly disruptive to his ex-wife's current life. The source notes that Ben always uses the kids as a pretense for being around.
Which is so tricky.
It puts John Miller in an absolutely impossible PR situation. If Miller complains or sets a firm boundary, he instantly looks like the villainous new boyfriend interfering with a dedicated father.
Exactly. It is the ultimate checkmate.
Yeah.
And now the situation has escalated because Garner has apparently invited Miller to join them on a summer family vacation with Ben.
Wow.
The insider literally said Miller feels like he will be the odd man out on a vacation with his own girlfriend. It is a complete collapse of boundaries. Ben is controlling the narrative of his own life by simply refusing to leave his ex-wife's stage.
Exes serve as a grounding reality check against carefully curated images. J.Lo is fiercely curating the independent single woman. Ben is curating the ever-present, immovable family patriarch.
Yeah.
And then you have Jessica Alba, who is facing a totally different kind of extra-loaded PR crisis, where the ex simply won't stick to the script.
Yes. Jessica Alba finalized her divorce from Cash Warren in early 2025 after an impressive 16 years of marriage. At the time, they released the standard statement promising to maintain deep respect and co-parent amicably.
Right.
But now, she is dating Avengers. Doomsday actor Danny Ramirez, and they are engaging in heavy, highly visible PDA all over the globe. We're talking Cancun, the Baby 2 Baby Gala, Australia, Miami. She is posting photos of herself kissing him on the cheek on Instagram.
And Cash Warren, unlike the silent, respectful ex-archetype, is not staying quiet.
Not at all.
He reportedly called her behavior totally out of line and publicly suggested to insiders that she is having a midlife crisis.
Which is just so incredibly patronizing. Alba's camp immediately fired back, saying she couldn't care less and thinks Warren is just bitter. But it proves your point entirely. You can have an immaculate billion-dollar honest company brand. You can look absolutely flawless in an Alex Perry dress in Miami. You can be a titan of industry, but you cannot control what the guy you used to be married to says to a tabloid reporter.
It highlights a massive generational shift in how public figures handle access to their personal lives. The older guard of Hollywood Lopez, Affleck, Alba, they're constantly fighting defensive battles to maintain their privacy boundaries and swat down narratives created by the press or their exes.
Right.
But if we look at the new generation of stars and influencers, they're rewriting the rules of the game entirely. They aren't hiding from the access. They are actively monetizing the vulnerability.
Here's where it gets really, really interesting. Let's look at Tom Holland. By all traditional metrics, he is one of the biggest movie stars in the world. He plays Spider-Man. He is the anchor of a multi-billion-dollar franchise.
Huge star.
Under the old Hollywood studio system, he should be the picture of bulletproof, manufactured perfection. But he just went on Amy Poehler's Good Hang podcast and completely stripped away all of the armor.
He revealed that he is heavily dyslexic, and that this learning difference is the specific reason he is absolutely petrified of hosting Saturday Night Live.
The fear of live cue card changes. He explained that the idea of trying to read a comedy sketch out loud on live television, only to have the writers change the joke on the card at the last possible second, is literally paralyzing for him.
Yeah, that sounds incredibly stressful.
He said table reads are the hardest part of his job, and he has to hyper-highlight his scripts weeks in advance just to be able to skim them in a group setting.
And he didn't stop there with the professional vulnerability. He also talked about his high-profile relationship with Zendaya. But he didn't frame it as a glamorous red carpet romance. He framed her as a functional, necessary lifeline in his workplace.
Yes, he talked about being on the set of Spider-Man, Brand New Day. He admitted there was a pivotal scene that just wasn't working. It felt wrong. And he, the star of the movie, was too intimidated to say anything to the massive Marvel machine.
Wow.
Until he asked Zendaya. She validated his feelings, bluntly told him the scene was awful, and gave him the confidence to go to the producers and the director, Destin Daniel Cretton. Because Holland and Zendaya spoke up, they literally sent the crew home for the day and rewrote the scene overnight.
That's amazing.
But let me ask you this, because this is where I get tripped up. When Tom Holland admits his deep fears about SNL or his profound insecurities on a multi-million-dollar set, it's like a magician showing you exactly how a trick is done. Doesn't that risk shattering the illusion of the movie star? Like, if we know Spider-Man is terrified of reading a piece of cardboard, do we lose the magic?
Well, under the old rules, yes, you would lose the magic.
Yeah.
The 1990s Hollywood machine hid flaws like dyslexia or on-set anxiety because they believed the public wanted gods, not humans.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise was never going to tell you he was scared of a table read.
Definitely not.
But Holland realizes that in a hyper-accessible, TikTok-driven era, the currency of fame has fundamentally shifted from aspiration to relatability. Authenticity is the strongest PR strategy available. Exposing the trick actually makes the audience root harder for the magician.
That makes a lot of sense.
And hilariously, he noted that the thing he gets the most universal compliments for isn't even his blockbuster superhero work.
It's his 2017 lip sync battle, the legendary umbrella dance.
Yes.
He started the performance in a traditional gray suit, singing in the rain, and then literally ripped it off to reveal fishnets, a tight corset, and a wig to dance flawlessly to Rihanna. He revealed in the interview that the wardrobe department tried to make his shorts longer because they were nervous about the optics, and he flat out refused.
He knew exactly what he was doing.
He said, "No, I'm doing enough. This is still years ahead of its time."
And he was absolutely right. That performance went incredibly viral because it dismantled traditional, rigid Hollywood masculinity in a joyful, highly confident way. It was a massive career risk that paid off precisely because it felt so authentic to his background as a dancer.
Right.
We see a similar taking of the reins with his Euphoria co-star, Sydney Sweeney.
Sydney is not sitting around waiting for Hollywood executives to hand her the perfect, nuanced role. Post-Euphoria, she took massive control of her own destiny. She launched her own production company, Honey Trap, and signed a lucrative first-look deal with Sony.
Good for her.
She just secured the rights to produce and star in a movie called Hollow, which is a feminist reimagining of the legend of Sleepy Hollow, told entirely from the perspective of Katrina Van Tassel.
What Holland and Sweeney represent is a savvy generation that demands control behind the scenes. Asking for structural rewrites, producing their own vehicles, setting up their own financing so they can afford to be safely vulnerable in front of the camera.
Yeah.
But as we move from young Hollywood to the influencer sphere, that line between authentic vulnerability and calculated monetized hustle completely blurs.
Blur is putting it lightly. The line has been entirely erased. Because we have influencers who are creating digital lifestyles that rival A-list celebrities, and the boundaries between family life, corporate business, and daily content are non-existent.
Look at Kylie Jenner.
Oh, perfect example. She just took a lavish, highly documented brand trip to Turks and Caicos for Kylie Cosmetics. But it wasn't just influencers on the jet. She brought her children, Stormy and Air. They flew on a private jet with everyone dressed in matching pink velour tracksuits. At one point, young Stormy was giving video tours of the luxury resort with a microphone.
It is the total commodification of the family unit.
Yeah.
The trip was a meticulously branded corporate experience. Kylie logos stamped on the parasols, branded coconuts, custom pillowcases. But by inserting her young children into the content, it psychologically softens the harsh corporate nature of the trip. It mixes the aggressive business of beauty with the relatable, softer mom narrative. It makes the consumer feel like they are watching a family home video rather than a $1 million commercial.
And speaking of the brutal business of beauty, let's talk about Alix Earle, who literally invested in herself like a Silicon Valley startup just to walk a runway.
This was wild.
She was tapped to walk the highly coveted Sports Illustrated swimsuit runway in Miami, and a source leaked that she dropped $10,000 of her own money straight from her personal Venmo account just to physically prep for the 60-second walk. We were talking outrageously expensive daily Pilates sessions, peptide hair rinses, and high-end sunless tanners.
Which is a fascinating peek behind the curtain of industry standards.
Mm-hmm.
Traditional supermodels rarely broadcast the intense financial and physical cost of their runway prep. The entire illusion relies on it looking genetically effortless.
Right, like they just woke up like that.
But Alix Earle's entire multi-million-dollar brand is built on the Get Ready With Me concept. showing her audience the messy, expensive, chaotic process of becoming beautiful. Leaking the $10,000 price tag doesn't hurt her brand. It reinforces her hustle. It says to her followers, I wasn't born into this. I bought and sweated my way into this space through sheer, undeniable effort.
And she is sharing that runway space with traditional models like Brooks Nader, who walked that same exact runway but curated her social media that week around a wholesome birthday tribute to her dad, calling him the best girl dad and sharing childhood ATV photos. It is this wild, contrasting mix of hyper-glamour and calculated normalcy fighting for attention.
But the most controversial blurring of lines at Miami Swim Week wasn't Alix Earle's budget or Brooks Nader's wholesome posts. It was the inclusion of Sophie Rain.
Oh, this caused an absolute meltdown in the high fashion world. For those who don't know, Sophie Rain is a massive OnlyFans creator. She publicly claims to have made over $100 million on the adult platform. And she was booked to walk the mainstream runway at Miami Swim Week in a giraffe print bikini.
And the traditional fashion purists were absolutely furious. The industry discourse argued that a mainstream legacy fashion show shouldn't be elevating and promoting an adult content creator, demanding a return to actual supermodels who train through traditional agency pipelines.
But if I can play devil's advocate for a second, if the sole goal of a runway show in 2026 is to generate attention, social media clicks, and ultimately swimsuit sales, Sophie Rain brings an engaged audience of millions that traditional agency models simply do not possess.
That's true.
She clapped back at the trolls online, looking completely unbothered. She knows exactly what her metric of value is.
You are absolutely right. What we're witnessing is the democratization, and some critics, the degradation of traditional prestige. The old gatekeepers of fashion and media are losing their power. If you have the followers, if you have the digital reach, you get the access. But we must circle back to the dark, unavoidable reality of this dynamic. Because while access gets you a spot on a runway, access also brings the danger right to your front door.
Which brings us to the terrifying news out of Los Angeles regarding Chris Brown. Just a few days ago, a man was arrested outside of Brown's $3.8 million mansion.
Okay.
And then, shockingly, that same man was released, went right back to the house, and was arrested again. And then he did it a third time.
That's terrifying.
And as if that wasn't enough of a security failure, just days later, the LAPD had to arrest a completely different person, a woman this time, for trespassing and trying to break into the exact same home.
This is the exact same parasocial nightmare we discussed with the kidnapping of Nancy Guthrie. When your life is entirely accessible, when your home's floor plan is featured on Architectural Digest, when your driveway is shown on TikTok tours, when your daily movements are tracked by fans and paparazzi, you lose the fundamental human right to physical security.
It's so true.
The illusion of control is violently shattered when strangers feel a deep psychological entitlement to occupy your physical space.
It is the ultimate terrifying price of modern access. You build the glass house and eventually everyone figures out where you live. And speaking of the ultimate blurring of lines, where music, sports, celebrity culture, and obsessive fandom are converging into one inescapable, highly secured event, we have to talk about the wedding of the year.
We're, of course, talking about the Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce phenomenon.
It is taking over everything.
Right.
The cultural crossover is unprecedented in modern pop culture history. On one hand, you have massive global musical events like BTS announcing their highly anticipated return to headline the iHeartRadio Music Festival in Vegas in September 2026.
Right.
On the other hand, you have the Kelce brothers, Travis and Jason, expanding their sports podcast empire into traditional publishing by releasing a book called No Dumb Questions.
They are dominating completely different spheres of influence: K-pop, NFL sports, podcasting, publishing.
But when Taylor and Travis come together, it creates a cultural gravity well that pulls in the entire zeitgeist. I mean, the narrator of Love Island USA, Ian Sterling, literally used their relationship as a historical time marker in the season 8 premiere. He said in the voiceover, "When we started, Taylor hadn't met Travis. They are the new calendar by which we measure pop culture time."
Which is exactly why the logistics of their impending wedding have become a matter of intense national interest. And the rumor mill has been working overtime, utilizing every leak possible, trying to pin down the exact location.
For months, everyone was thoroughly convinced it was going to be a massive, sprawling Rhode Island wedding at Taylor's famous Westerly estate, or perhaps the nearby Ocean House Resort. The local economy was bracing for impact.
Right.
But the local police chief went on the record saying they had absolutely no knowledge of any impending security plans. And then Rhode Island Senator Sheldon Whitehouse basically confirmed the pivot. A reporter ambushed him, and he plainly said, "I think she gave Rhode Island a pass."
So the distraction campaign, the intentional misdirection, worked flawlessly, and the real logistics are finally beginning to leak.
Yes. The new, highly vetted intel points to an incredibly secure, intensely intimate wedding on July 3rd in New York City. Specifically, it is slated to take place at Swift's massive Soho apartment.
Wow.
And the security protocols are insane, bordering on paranoia. She isn't sending out tangible, physical invitations because they could easily leak to the press or be sold on eBay. Instead, she's personally making phone calls to invite the guests.
Planning a wedding at this level isn't event planning. It is practically attempting to hold a G7 summit in a downtown walk-up. The logistical nightmare of shutting down downtown Manhattan streets just to securely get a caterer inside without paparazzi interference? It's
That's
staggering.
one leaked physical invitation, and you have a national security incident in Soho. And you mentioned earlier that a guest list is a political map, like we saw with the royal family. For someone at Taylor Swift's stratospheric level of fame, a wedding guest list functions as a highly strategic, incredibly potent PR document.
It does.
It dictates to the entire world who is in the inner circle, who has been banished, and, most interestingly, who has been officially forgiven. Which brings us to the biggest plot twist of this entire saga.
Carly Close got an invite.
I gasped when I read this. For those who might not have a PhD in pop culture history, let's explain why this matters.
Yeah.
Taylor Swift and supermodel Carly Kloss were inseparable best friends during the 1989 era. They shared magazine covers, they traveled together, they were the ultimate duo.
Yeah.
But they had a massive, highly publicized falling out, largely centered around Carly's 2019 wedding. Carly invited music executive Scooter Braun to her wedding, and Taylor did not attend. It was viewed as the ultimate betrayal in the Swift cinematic universe.
And we need to explain the mechanics of why that was a betrayal. For those who might not follow the inner workings of music industry contracts, owning your master recordings means you own the original, definitive version of your song.
Right.
It is your life's work. It is your legacy. Scooter Braun famously purchased Taylor's masters out from under her against her will. When Carly Kloss invited him to her wedding, it wasn't just a minor social faux pas. In the Swift ecosystem, it was an endorsement of the man who stole her institutional memory.
Exactly. It was the equivalent of tearing down the East Wing to build a ballroom. And now, years later, after re-recording all her albums and reclaiming her power, Taylor is extending an invitation to Carly for her own wedding. Why?
Because inviting Carly Kloss isn't just about quietly mending an old friendship behind closed doors. It is a highly public, definitive execution of the Scooter Braun era. By bringing Carly back into the fold on the eve of her marriage, Swift is signaling to the industry and her fans that she has unequivocally won the war.
She really has.
She has reclaimed her masters, she has outlasted her enemies, and she is entering her new forever era without carrying the heavy, bitter baggage of past feuds. She is completely controlling the narrative of her own healing.
It is brilliant. She is writing the final triumphant chapter of that drama on her own terms, literally inside her own living room in Soho. Okay, we have covered an incredible, sweeping amount of ground today. We started with Dr. Jill Biden mourning the physical and legislative erasure of a presidential legacy, and we looked at the terrifying reality of involuntary access for the Guthrie family.
Yeah.
We explored how Spencer Pratt is weaponizing visibility for political gain. We watched the British royal family try to balance the heavy duty of physical presence against the struggling digital brand building of Meghan Markle.
We analyzed how Hollywood veterans like J.Lo, Ben Affleck, and Jessica Alba wrestle with the stubborn narratives created by their exes.
We broke down how the new guard, from Tom Holland's vulnerability to Alix Earle's financial transparency, are rewriting the rules of prestige. And finally, we unpacked how Taylor Swift is orchestrating a geopolitical-level event from her apartment using a simple guest list to publicly forgive her enemies and cement her legacy.
It's a lot.
It is. So I want to turn this over to you, the listener. We've spent this entire deep dive analyzing billionaires, politicians, and pop stars. But I want you to think about your own life. Where do you feel the pressure to maintain a perfect, curated PR image, whether it's for your friends, your family, or your coworkers on LinkedIn? And more importantly, where are you finally exhausted enough to let the messy, uncurated reality show through?
It is a vital question for all of us, because the potent tools of public relations are no longer restricted to public figures. If a billionaire pop star's wedding guest list is essentially a public declaration of her current alliances and forgiven enemies, What does it mean when we curate our own social media followers or edit our close friends lists on Instagram? In an era where everything is public and digital, are we all just running mini silent PR campaigns for our own lives?
It really makes you look at that solid legacy you thought you were building and realize just how many windows you've installed for everyone else to look through. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the source material. We'll be back next time to untangle another complex stack of narratives. Until then, keep an eye on your own blueprints and watch who you give the keys to.